Having a well-packed tool bag when you go out on wedding or event deliveries is essential. I'm Ellen Frost, I'm a florist, and I build flower communities in real life and online. Today I'm going to show you what my top 10 must-have items in a tool bag are. The first item I would say is your clippers. And I like to have my actual clippers, like my clippers that I use in the shop, so that when I'm out on a delivery, if I have to do any designing or any fixing of anything, I like to have my own clippers, and so I feel comfortable. And I don't like using other clippers, so I like to have my own clippers. If you have somebody on your team coming with you, make sure you have some clippers for them as well. So clippers, number one. Number two, if you are going on a wedding delivery, I always like to have extra ribbon with me. So this is ribbon that is either being used on the bridal bouquet or the boutonnieres or corsages or anywhere else in the flower decor, because you never know when you might have to redo some ribbon or add a ribbon to something. I always like to have that extra with me. The next thing I always like to have is pins. So these are boutonniere pins. These are important because if you have forgotten to put boutonniere pins in the boutonniere, there's no option. There's no other way to fasten a boutonniere on except for using pins. So I always like to have a box of pins with me. You can also use this to pin other things like fabric on a huppah or an arch or something like that. So pins are my next must-have. Next, I always like to have some wire with me. I would usually have a couple different kinds of wire. So this is a really light gauge wire. I might have a little bit of a heavier wire with me too. And this is for, well, you're just never sure. You're not sure what might happen. If you have to wire some flowers together, if you have to wire, we one time had to wire an arch to a railing. So you never know. So I always like to have wire with me. I like to have some cold glue with me. Again, you're never really sure what you're going to need it for, but usually the things I might need it for are if I have to make something as an emergency, either a wrist corsage or a hair comb, something like that, or if I have to fix something that either came apart. So I always like to have cold glue with me. Let's see, what else do I have in here? I like to always have zip ties with me, again, because zip ties are super versatile. You can use them for a million things. So rather than having like duct tape or something like that, zip ties are my go-to. All right, this is more than one item, but I'm just going to show them all together. I like to have things to clean up. So a little broom, a garbage bag, some towels. This is important because you always want to leave the space that you enter just cleaner or as clean or cleaner than it was before. So I like to have some dry towels, dry clean towels, some trash bags, and if you can get a little brush and dustpan, this is terrific. All right, let's see. Next, I like to always have floral tape with you. So I have a 1-inch and a smaller one. So this is what I use for bouquets, and this is what I use for boutonnieres. And again, in case anything needs to be repaired, or if I have to make something on site, this is the tape to have. I always like to have some wrist cuffs with me. So these are the cuffs that I use for wrist corsages. I always like to have these with me, again, because if you need to make a wrist corsage or you need to fix a wrist corsage, there's no real option unless you have extra cuffs with you. So these are really small. You can just have, a variety of them in your bag. All right, next, I always like to have business cards. Do not leave the house without your business cards, especially when you're going to a wedding or event, because people will always ask you if you have a card. Probably because your flowers look awesome, and they're going to ask for your business card. So be sure just tuck a stack of these in your bag so that you can hand them out when somebody asks. And then lastly, number 10 on my list of must-haves to have in your bag are snacks. Usually wedding and event deliveries are long. They can take hours. And I always like to have snacks with me because you never want to be irritated or hungry. You want to be, have your game face on. You want to be right there, not hungry, not hangry. So make sure to have snacks in your bag. Now, these aren't the only things I have in my bag, but these are my top 10 essentials for what to have in a good wedding and event tool bag. Thanks for following along.